This video is dedicated to the most renowned Beelzebub stan, as well as a friend of this channel, JLuxstar. I always enjoy reading your comments, so this is my personal gratitude to you. Now, on to the video. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is T.E. Laurence, and sorry for the long absence. I've been traveling a lot for the holidays, as well as working on a new Helltaker fan comic, which I'm very excited to showcase soon. Some of you already know about it from the little teasers I've been dropping so far. But now, I'm finally back with this series, so Beelzebub fans, rejoice! Now, without further ado, today, we're gonna discuss why Beelzebub deserves a second chance, as well as a big hug from all of us. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. A second chance from what? Also, Laurence. As a Justice fan, how could you possibly cover for her mortal enemy? She's the reason why Best Girl became blind. Furthermore, who the hell would be into something like this? Calm thyselves and heed my words, fellow Justice fans. There are many tales about Beelzebub, the most notable being that she betrayed Lucifer at one point, before having an epic battle with then High Prosecutor Justice, thus getting herself exiled into the abyss. But many of these accounts also come from the Queen herself, thus making them biased and not completely reliable. Besides, have any of you ever wondered what Beelzebub's side of the story is? Exactly. I hate sounding like a broken record, but there's always nuance with everything, as nothing is black and white, but rather shades of gray. Therefore, in this video, we will not only be exploring Beelzebub's perspective, but also redeem her reputation by showcasing why she deserves a big hug for what she's gone through. Before we begin, enjoy the speed paint of Beelzebub as an equestrian athlete in the 2024 Paris Olympics. The finished piece will be shown at the end. Anyways, Beelzebub, the Great Fly. The Fly Demon has many names. The Sovereign of Pestilence, the Warden of Decay, the Mistress of Flies, the Queen Crimson. Not exactly the most endearing terms. One is given to wonder, however, what exactly did Beelzebub do to receive such derogatory titles? Surely the gentle and suave mommy fly girl can't be that terrible. In fact, quite the contrary. I mean, just look at her. Girl got class with her impeccable fashion sense. Like Judgment, Beel also stands out from the rest, sporting a wardrobe of one hailing from a posh aristocracy versus the slick business look, making her quite the novelty. In fact, she's the one quote-unquote queen whose looks actually lives up to the title. While Lucifer loves to brandish herself as the Queen of Hell, I have to be honest, she doesn't really exude the stature of a monarch, or any royalty for that matter. Meanwhile, the Sovereign of Pestilence certainly nails it when it comes to the aesthetics of nobility. Therefore, as much as her pride may prevent her, perhaps Lucy should take some notes from her counterpart in the Abyss. Speaking of being queen, her grand appearance is not just empty decor or facade. Despite the degrading names placed upon Beelzebub, all of them retain a modicum of respect and acknowledgement, albeit begrudgingly. Titles such as Sovereign, Mistress, or Queen would not be afforded towards her if she was some insignificant imp. No, we're talking about Beelzebub the Great Fly. She may have been exiled to the Abyss after her defeat against her former compatriot and now ruler of Hell, Lucifer. But she is still one of the original vanguards of the glorious revolution against the old lords of Hell. She is still one of the most powerful demons in existence, whose prowess arguably rivaled that of the High Prosecutor herself. Therefore, the Queen Crimson is certainly royalty in her own right, and not just a queen in name only. And as much as Lucifer hates to admit it, she's not the only queen from the Inferno. In fact, unlike Lucifer, who needs to put active effort into earning adulation, much like Justice, Beelzebub's natural charisma attracts respect and adoration without effort. I'll go even further and say that she's a kinder, gentler, and more lax version of Lucifer. Sorry, Lucy. For one, while Lucifer is prone to breaking down like an easily triggered and emotionally underdeveloped brat when overwhelmed, the Lord of the Flies knows how to hold herself together under pressure and handle any issues with tact and grace. Unlike the High Prosecutor Justice, who's a bit too strict about testing your resolve, the Mistress of Flies will not burden you with such hazing ordeals and make you feel right at home. On the contrary, she will act as a gracious host by not only switching from her grotesque bug form to a more suitable and attractive one, but also downright spoil you like a maternal and gentle giant she is. In fact, due to her isolation in the Abyss, she greatly yearns for the rare visitors that pass by and will do her damnedest to prolong their stay by making them feel as welcome and comfortable as possible. More on that later though. That said, her grand dame persona might lead some of you to think that she's nothing but some arrogant and haughty miss who enjoys stepping on others. No, you're mistaking her for another queen. Indeed, Beel is quite the smug and playful gal who loves to tease and pull your leg, not too different from Zedrada. But unlike the bitch demon, she's not gonna roast your ass with overly tough love. Rather, she just loves to play casual mind games with her guests, like a cat playing with a mouse. Mostly harmless, but still good-natured in the end. Plus, she has some big-time ara-ara energy. Sure, she's a bit on the older side, but some of us are fine with older women.
Oh yeah.
And some of you actually prefer older women.
We hit the jackpot!
Oh yeah, Mr. Krabs!
Still, some of you may feel worried about the Abyss itself, which is an expanse of nothingness. Fortunately, the Crimson Queen will not only keep you company, but also prevent your boredom with her endless stories from her time before her exile. In fact, her Tales of Old showcase just how much extraordinary wisdom she holds as well. Speaking of Tales of Old, all that said, many of you are probably wondering, if Beelzebub is so great, what egregious crime did she commit that forced her into exile? Well, prepare your favorite warm drink and take a seat in front of our fireplace, for we shall travel back to ancient times. Most of you are already aware of the basics of what happened between Beelzebub and Lucifer, such as their collective battle and victory against the old lords of hell before their subsequent rift and fallout. But so far, we have only heard of Lucifer's side of the story. Now we shall re-examine it, but from Beelzebub's perspective, for I believe that regardless of whose side you ultimately choose, every side deserves at the very least to be heard out before making a decision. After Lucifer and her conspirators triumphed against the old lords, they immediately proceeded to clean house, which included purging and exiling those on the losing side of the civil war. Among those leading these efforts was Beelzebub, who was Lucifer's closest advisor and arguably her de facto second-in-command. As one of the original vanguard of the Glorious Revolution, Beel was fully on board with the objective of overthrowing the old lords, seeing how their greedy and self-indulgent rulership led to pointless chaos and decadence. But there were also looming questions of what should follow after the regime change. What would be the new vision for the Inferno? What new system would replace the old one? Who would be the new ruler of Hell? These were very important issues that could not be ignored and had to be addressed sooner or later. But for the time being, Lucifer and her conspirators decided to set them aside and focus first on overthrowing the old lords. However, after the dust finally settled, the elephant in the room had to be addressed. And it was a massive elephant. On one hand, Lucifer firmly believed that Hell must be governed by a single ruler under one unified vision. Given her experience with the old lords, she firmly believed that collective leadership, especially by demons, would only lead to gridlock and infighting due to their individual ambitions and pride. Given the context of the recent civil conflict, her perspective was understandable. In fact, the old lords didn't even behave as leaders, being much more akin to absentee parents that neglected their household. That probably explains why Lucy also keeps the Helltaker's household in tight order, reflecting on her past experiences. That said, Beelzebub had a very valid rebuttal towards Lucifer. Although the old lords had to go, autocratic rule was stretching it too far. Even if the issues of gridlock and infighting were addressed, how would things be any different if the occupant of the throne was just as unfit to rule as the old lords? And speaking of, why would it be Lucifer that wears the crown? Why not Beelzebub or any other demon for that matter? What unique qualifications did Lucifer have to become a virtual dictator of hell? Who's to say that Lucifer's justifications were just a pretense for her usurpation of power? And given Lucifer's scarred emotional state from the aftermath of the conflict, Beelzebub would be remiss not to voice concern. Even if Lucifer spearheaded the overthrow of the old lords, being a martial leader and a statesman are very different tasks, and typically better off being separated. Unfortunately, as soon as Lucifer smelled blood, she immediately made her move to neutralize the potential threat. Even if it pained her to do so against someone she gladly would have given her life towards, her newfound vision for the Inferno was far more important than personal bonds, and she'd be damned to jeopardize it all and potentially cause another civil conflict. Therefore, Lucifer sacrificed her close comrade and friend by exiling her to the Abyss. making an example out of anyone who entertained the same dissenting impulses. In the end, Lucifer stood victorious, but at a great cost. Whether Lucifer or Beelzebub was correct is open-ended, therefore you are free to have your own opinion. At the risk of sounding like a fence-sitter, there is more nuance than it seems, as both of them had legitimate points. Who you side with is probably determined by your personal values, and of course, who you simp for. But due to the circumstances and the heightened emotional state everyone was in, the power struggle was inevitable. In other words, everyone was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Coming back to present day, the important question is, how do both of them feel about each other now? Indeed, their schism was monumental, and the resulting scars are still apparent for both of them, and others as well. That said, it all happened eons ago. Let's face it, everyone and the world has largely moved on since then. As cliche as it is, time, given enough of it, does indeed heal wounds, and there is evidence that it has for both queens. In fact, thanks to the man himself, I think both Beel and Lucy have mellowed out quite a bit. For one, Lucifer's long tenure as the absolute monarch of hell has undoubtedly humbled her, realizing that Beelzebub was correct in some ways even if she's too prideful to admit it. On the other hand, Beelzebub has undoubtedly had plenty of time in the Abyss to reflect on her actions. As shown in her third date in Second Circle, her reflections have undoubtedly led to better. Such prolonged isolation often results in the victim succumbing to their inner negative voice, thus leading to worse. But instead, Beel not only expresses remorse for her actions, but also no longer desires any vengeance on her detractors, knowing full well that it wouldn't accomplish anything positive. Though I guess she wasn't completely isolated, thanks to the good company of her skeleton butler, Walter. Rest in peace, Walter. You're the real MVP. So, does Beelzebub deserve a second chance and a hug? Absolutely. Her interactions with the Helltaker have proven that she isn't some deranged and vengeful lunatic seeking retribution against the household. In fact, she's moved on from the past and is just a lonely gal seeking genuine and wholesome companionship. Furthermore, I'll go even further by arguing that Beel did not commit any crime, and much less anything egregious for that matter. All she really did was voice disagreement and concern over Lucy's autocratic direction, and lo and behold, turns out she was completely correct on that matter. One could argue that even if Beel didn't end up betraying Lucifer, she still showed intent and therefore Lucifer's preemptive strike was justified. But your guess is just as good as mine on that. In any case, Beel's excellent rebuttal to Walter's question is evidence that she is indeed worthy of redemption and therefore a second chance. Some of you Lucy fans may still think that she deserves punishment for her supposed disloyalty. Even if true, in my honest opinion, being imprisoned in the Abyss was a bridge too far. For no one deserves to suffer from such isolation. Real talk, ladies and gentlemen. Isolation is a bitch. Whether it's being alienated from your community, being literally cut off from all human contact, or just being alone during the holidays like I've often been, it's a dreadful experience. And unfortunately, it's an experience I can relate to a lot, which is why I would never wish it upon anyone, even my worst enemies. There's a reason why solitary confinement is used as punishment in prisons. Because even if you're in the same room with some of the most vile and reprehensible beings on the face of this earth, it is better to be with them than to be completely alone. That really speaks volumes. So call me sentimental, but there's nothing more I'd wish for than to see Beel finally escape from the Abyss and join the household, hopefully with open arms. And thanks to the man himself, I have some hope, which is also why he's such a massive Chad. Not because of his prowess, but his ability to build bridges and help others become better versions of themselves. And ever since he started visiting the Abyss, Beel has without a doubt come out of her shell and become a more open and vibrant being, and ready to return to the light. Now, that's not to say things will be smooth sailing when she eventually steps foot into the household. Certainly, there will be a lot of awkwardness and distrust lingering, especially from Lucy and Justice. But, by one step at a time, day by day, I have faith that their severed trust and bond can eventually be reforged. And it starts by both parties owning up and apologizing to each other. But for some, sorry seems to be the hardest word. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, Beelzebub the Great Fly deserves a second chance, as well as a big bear hug for all she's been through. Even if you believe that she must be held accountable for her mutinous impulses, I think she's paid overtime and suffered long enough. Even as a Justice fan, I'm willing to forgive her and give her another chance. Neither Beelzebub, Lucy, or Justice are the same freshly wounded survivors as they were back then, and there is no reason to hold on to so much resentment for something that not only happened in prehistoric times, but isn't even that relevant anymore. And thanks to the man himself, I am optimistic that everyone can heal together. So let's type a big capital W for the Helltaker. And of course, here's the finished drawing of Beelzebub the Equestrian Demon. Equestrian was a real toss-up of whether I should assign it to Beel or Lucy, but I ultimately chose Beel because she's already dressed in a red outfit and somehow, I think she'd handle animals really well. In the end, the red coat-clad Beel on a horse came out really well. Finally, the next video on this series will be on Pandamonica, the tired and sadistic demon. That's right, I have not forgotten about her, so stay tuned. Thank you to my patrons on Patreon for supporting this channel. My $5 patrons are Kapitan Sladjek and Kidzap. My $2 patrons are Komida the Prep Cook Demon. If you would like to appear at the end credits of my videos, as well as have early access and exclusive content on Patreon, feel free to hop on over to patreon.com/LTELawrence and give a pledge. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you would like to see my artwork as well, feel free to check out my other platforms like DeviantArt for my entire gallery. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, this is T. Lawrence signing out. Have a good one.